Paulina.
Hey, Megan.
What book are we talking about today?
Today we're going to be talking about The Mushroom at the End of the World on the Possibility of Life in Capitalist Ruins, which is by Anna Lowenhaupt Singh.
Paulina, what is this book about?
Uh, this book is about a lot of things, but my sort of one sentence describer of it is that it's a material history of the Matsutake mushroom that examines very closely interactions between current people and their environment. Um, and that feels like a very, very dry description of the book. And it's so
Mhm.
much more than that. But, like,
Yeah.
at the heart of it, that's what it is. What was one cool thing that you remember from the book, or one cool thing that you got from reading this book?
Besides an intense desire to try a matsutake mushroom, um, that was one. But also, I'm not gonna lie. I really want. Okay, sorry.
No, that's fine.
Um, um, One of the things I found really interesting in the book was when the author talked about the camps that people live in and the way that these camps were separated and yet not separated by cultural and ethnic origins, and the way that you had people who they all were there for the same purpose, but they treated the process of what they were doing, which was looking for these particular mushrooms. They treated it so differently, and their relationships with each other were so different. And in particular, I was really interested in the differences between the people who went out and did it, and it was their life and their livelihood, and how they had a different attitude to some of the all I can think of is like more cowboy sort of guys who went out and they were more about being out in the wilderness and manly pursuits and such. Um,
Mm-hmm.
I thought that was really interesting.
Yeah, I think there's such an interesting cross-cultural discussion that happens by focusing on this one kind of mushroom,
Yeah.
that is just so cool and so vibrant that comes from this book. And I think that it also brings out themes of archaeology in really interesting ways. So on the face of it, based on the description, we might not think of this particular book as fitting the theme, which is what is archaeology. But there are so many aspects of this book that bring things back to an embodied physical and material culture or belongings centric narrative that I just felt that this was like such an important book to bring to people, to talk about themes of you sort of the concept of ruin or the concept of what a town or a village
Mhm.
looks like. One other really cool thing that came out of this is how different cultural um, conceptions basically understand what an untouched landscape is.
Yes.
That was such a fascinating discussion for me. And it really brought to me home this idea that even what we in kind of Western modes, particularly Western American modes, view as like untouched landscapes are actually very much human constructed landscapes.
Hmm.
They're just constructed or managed in different ways. And there's this great interplay between how different kinds of forest science, which are all rooted in cultural modes, then influence and interact with their environments in completely different ways. And that's such an important archaeological question, is how you choose to modify your environment is not just driven by one kind of need or one kind of way of doing that. It's situated in the beliefs we have as a cultural embodied people. And this book just talks about that in such great ways. I think my favorite is like the Finnish Russian forest argument where people were talking about like, oh, that's the Russian side of the forest, they don't know how to take care of it. And for me it was just such a funny thing where like it brings up sort of like cultural discussions I've had as someone who's of Polish heritage, and how sort of people in that region just view Russia conceptually. And then also this idea of knowing what people should do versus not. But, at the heart of it, they both kind of have healthy forests
Hmm.
regardless. Um, and I thought that that was just such a fun aspect of the book. What's one way that you feel that this book fits the theme of what is archaeology?
We've touched on this in some of our other books, but one of the things I found very interesting in this was the concept of what is environmental damage,
Oh yeah.
and who gets to decide what is environmental damage, and the impact that that has both on the society that's living through it and what happens in the future. Um, there was a lot of discussion in there about the idea of controlled burns and fires and what that does.
Yeah.
And that has been something in my career that I've been sort of butting up against for
Mm-hmm.
20 years now, because of state policies versus national policies and personal views that people have about forests, um, and I found that very interesting, and sort of a little bit like a revelation to see here's this direct thing that comes out of doing something that has burning and burning and not burning, that has these important um, connotations, and that people feel so strongly about, whether we should do controlled burns in forests or not. And I think that seeing seeing that there is this thing that's come out of it, and also that this thing has been commoditized, and entered into the capitalist stream of commerce.
Mm-hmm.
That messed with my head a little bit,
Yeah.
because I wanted to look at it and say, look, these mushrooms are a good thing. This is a sign that stasis is not necessarily what happens when you have environmental damage.
Mm-hmm.
Um, it can be a growth opportunity, but then also like, oh, we've taken this really interesting thing and we've made it a commodity, um, that for the most part only people with a lot of money can experience.
Mm-hmm.
And that was, yeah, like I said, that messed with me. That
Yeah.
that that set me back a little bit. I had to think about that. So,
Yeah.
um,
Well,
Paulina, if you were going to recommend other works for people to look at after this, if this book provoked them into being more interested in things, what would you suggest?
if one of the things that you really liked out of this book was a fascinating discussion of mushrooms, I would highly recommend Silvia Moreno Garcia's Mexican Gothic. It is a very good book, and there is a lot of discussion about mushrooms in it. It is fiction. If you were more drawn into this aspect, I guess kind of like Megan and I both were, on how do we understand culturally the idea of environmental damage? Is it damage? Is it just a transformation? Is it just a seasonal shift? How do we define these questions? I would really recommend N.K. Jemison's trilogy, The Broken Earth. It really looks at that concept of sort of human driven environmental change, and also looks at it, particularly if you actually read the whole series. There is some very interesting discussions as to how that looks like through civilizations and transformation of civilizations, that I think is very important. As far as sort of mood music, this is definitely sort of on the lo-fi end, but there's a song called Acropolis Falls that I believe is from a video game, actually, that definitely got me into the mood of thinking about what this end of the world apocalypse mushroom living in capitalist ruins, what sort of vibe I might be going for in this work. How about you, Megan? What works would you recommend if folks liked this book?
Well, it depends on how you feel about mushrooms. Um, I'm going to point out that, as we were prepping to do this particular video, the video series of The Last of Us came out, which was a video game that dealt with the cordyceps mushroom, which in or cordyceps fungus, which in nature takes over ants and basically controls their body. Um, this is a science fiction. My brain just stopped. Oh,
It's a
maybe that
fictional
again.
expansion of that
Yes. It's a
concept.
fictional expansion of a video game series that posits that cordyceps mushrooms, cordyceps fungus, caused the end of human civilization. Um, it's a totally different tone. The game is a different tone. The video, the show is a different tone. But if you're interested in mushrooms, it's very you learn a lot more about mushrooms than you think you would, um, and it's a totally different thing.
Yeah. Well, that's awesome. Thank you for talking with me about this book today, Megan.
Of course, thank you for talking to me.